Hi there, Chevy owners. Today in your 2020 Chevy Sonic, we're going to be taking a look at and showing you how to install Roadmaster's fuse bypass kits. We're going to be using a double fuse harness as well as two single harnesses to disconnect all the fuses required on our Sonic today. These fuse bypass kits will allow you to quickly remove the fuses from your vehicle with a simple press of a button. Oftentimes, your vehicles require fuses to be pulled when placed into flat tow mode to prevent the battery from draining and to ensure it's in a safe state where you can pull it without causing any damage to the vehicle. To prevent you from having to open the hood and pull out a fuse, and some of the fuses are pretty small, you need a little, like a pair of needle nose pliers or a fuse puller to be able to get them out. We can simplify that process by installing these fuse harnesses here. And the fuse is relocated into the harness, and the harness just goes right where the fuse was located. We can then engage and disengage the fuse with a simple press of a button. We're using two of the singles and a double unit today to be able to remove 4 fuses because that's what's required for our Sonic here. We'll begin our installation here in the vehicle. I already mounted up the switches, but the majority of them are gonna attach right here and actually go to the fuse panel located right behind this cover here. So to install them, you can go ahead and pop this cover out. I just drilled the holes right here to mount the switches into. I used a step bit to drill it out. That way I can ensure I get a nice snug fit. It is about a 3/4 inch size hole that you gotta drill, but I prefer the step bit just because that way you can kind of step it up, make sure it's nice and snug, and get it tightened on there. You will have to pull the wires off the back, so that way you can slide the switch through and then attach the nut, and then you can poke the wires back on. It doesn't matter the order for the wires when you're attaching them. Now we are showing off both styles today. They install the same way. It's just one is only gonna work for one fuse. We've got 2 for single fuses and one that operates 2 fuses. And that's because our Sonic here has 4 fuses that needs to be pulled for flat tow mode. 3 of them are located right behind this panel, and another one is located under the hood. So that's why we have another single to get to that one out there. Now with the doubles, the only thing that matters is that you keep your paired colors on the same side. So when you disconnect these, you got a little piece of plastic here in the middle. Both red need to go on one side and both black need to go on the other, but it doesn't matter, you know, if it's the top or the bottom pin, as long as you got the black on one side and the red on the other side of that plastic barrier there. So once you get your switches mounted up, we can then install the other end right into our fuse box. And it can be a little difficult to see in here, but all we did is we removed the fuse from the location that's required. And then there's 2 little pins that come out. You just poke one pin on one side where the fuse pin was, and then the other pin just goes in the other slot where the fuse was removed. And then our fuse, after we remove it, simply poke it right here into the fuse holder. And then you can just flip that back on. And we just repeat that for all the fuses. On our Sonic here, we need to bypass the DLIS fuse, 2 amp fuse, and it shows here on the diagram where it's located. It's in the top left corner there. We also need to do both BCM 1 and 2, which is in the bottom left corner, the very bottom one, and then the one right above that. We use BCM 1 and 2. We did our double fuse holder for both of those. So there's 2 slots on this one for 2 different fuses. One's for BCM 1, one's for BCM 2. The red set of wires controls one and the black set controls the other, but it's a single button, so when you disconnect or reconnect, it does both at the same time. And then the last one we need to remove is actually underneath the hood. So we will need to route our wiring out there. I'll go ahead and let you guys take a quick look here at the connections to the fuse box right here, and then we'll show you under the hood where we need to finish up for our other one. And here you can see the harness just goes up to where the fuse was. When you pull the fuse out, you'll see a couple little pins, one on each side. And if you look at your fuse, the little tangs that are on the fuse, those slide into those 2 pins. So the end of your wires, they have the pre-crimped little spade ends on them. Those are just gonna slide right in between those slots. So now we're underneath the hood. Now for the last one here under the hood, we did have to cut the wires, and I had to extend it to reach this far. So that's what this yellow and green wire is here. We just used some extra wire we had here in the shop to make the extension. I cut the ends off. I fed my wire through the grommet there on the inside, and I reconnected it to the switch on the inside there. And then here on the outside, underneath this fuse cover, we need to remove fuse 7 for the passive entry. And so you can see here, this is the black wires that comes on your harness. That's where I cut them. They're only probably like 4 inches long, and then I extended it to reach inside from there. And then here's the 2 pins where it just pokes into the fuse number 7 for the passive entry right there. And that's all 4 fuses that we'll need to bypass for our system. I did, if you look here, I had to make a small notch right there for the wires to pass through so the cover would reinstall. And that completes our installation of Roadmaster's Fuse Bypass Kit on our 2020 Chevy Sonic.